Hello, and welcome back to the Transform Wellness Clinic. I'm Dr. Bradford Perkins, and today we're going to continue our talks on women's health, and we're going to delve into what is perimenopause and menopause. So, first thing we need to understand is that hormones don't just turn off, they shift during this time frame. So perimenopause is that 5 to 10 a year transition before menopause occurs, and by definition, menopause is no period for 12 months. In this time, ovarian function fluctuates, cycles shorten or lengthen, and symptoms appear long before periods stop. And that's where a lot of practitioners don't get it right. Our ovaries produce 90 to 95% of circulating estrogens, mainly something called estradiol. There's 3 forms of estrogen, but it mainly produces the estradiol. Makes 80% of our progesterone, and that's when a woman ovulates. What's left behind is something called the corpus luteum, and that's what produces progesterone. And it makes 25% of testosterone. The rest of the testosterone is made either in the adrenals or it's actually converted from estrogen. So early perimenopause, cycles are still regular, but you might notice some subtle hormone changes. The progesterone lowers first, estrogen remains the same. Cortisol starts to become more reactive, so you start to not be able to handle stress as easily. You may notice increased in PMS or anxiety. You might have heavier periods, or you might be more emotional around your period, and you might start to have sleep issues or maybe some breast tenderness. Then mid-perimenopause is really when there's that hormonal roller coaster, because you have this decline in progesterone, but now that the estrogen goes all over the place. So you get these estrogen spikes, you get these drops, ovulation is sporadic, and then these symptoms fluctuate month to month. So you might have hot flashes one month, heavier periods the next month. You might notice more anxiety, might start to notice some night sweats or some breast tenderness. And then these cycles are just unpredictable. And then when we get to late perimenopause, this is when you start to get these cycles that are over 45 days apart. Estrogen and progesterone are both low. Ovulation rarely happens at this point. Now you have a lot of missed periods. Now you're definitely having more hot flashes and night sweats intensify. You might notice vaginal dryness, low libido, brain fog, and this is when you might start to notice that the weight gain around the belly, and you lose it from the hips. It kind of moves up. That's from the loss of estrogen. So if we're looking at the timeline, early perimenopause might start as early as the early 30s. Mid 40s is mid-peri, and then late, around 50. Sorry, that is around 50. That's where late perimenopause, menopause. Now this is on average. Some women go into menopause in their mid-50s, some are in their early 40s. This is more in general. In the thing with perimenopause to menopause, progesterone declines first, then estrogen starts to swing, then something called FSH, follicular stimulating hormone rises, and then everything goes low, and now you're in menopause. So menopause begins, like I said earlier, 12 months without a period. Without. Your average age is 51. After that, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone remain low. So when all the hormones are low, it does lead to system shifts. So it affects your heart health, affects your cholesterol, it affects your insulin sensitivity, affects your brain health. That's when you get more brain fog and can increase your risk of dementia, osteopenia and osteoporosis, so your bone health, and your metabolism, again, with your insulin resistance. So long-term consequences of low estrogen, estrogen regulates over 400 functions throughout the body. So when it's low in the brain, increased risk of Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. Cardiovascular, you have increased atherosclerosis, hypertension, and as far as the skeletal system, decreased bone density, increased fracture risk. Metabolic health, you're going to increase your visceral fat, insulin resistance, your LDL particle number goes up, your ApoB goes up, your lipoprotein A can go up. And then we start to get these oxidized LDL, inflammation goes up, and the HDL goes down. And then you start to lose these antioxidant protection of estrogen. So estrogen upregulates antioxidant enzymes. So now we're getting too much stress in the system, and our balance from something called oxidative stress and antioxidants is thrown way off. As far as mortality, women less than 60 who start hormone replacement therapy have a 28% lower mortality and better quality of life. Cardiovascular disease is the number one cause of death for men and women. And early initiation of HRT appears to be protective to our cardiovascular health. Early intervention, even in perimenopause, leads to long-term protection. And there are some studies showing starting in perimenopause has even more benefits than if you wait till after that 12 months. So start HRT during perimenopause and definitely before 10 years since you enter menopause. So if someone has early or surgical menopause before the age of 45, that is, this causes sudden drop in hormones, which accelerates bone and heart aging. So these people definitely benefit from hormone replacement therapy if they're able to do it due to maybe the underlying reason they had a hysterectomy before the age of 45. So there is common misconceptions about hormone therapy. In 2002, the Women's Health Initiative created a lot of fear. If you really break it down, the risk was when they used synthetic progesterone called progestins. Estradiol can lower mortality and even reduces breast cancer and dementia risk. So if we're looking at hormone replacement, we don't use synthetic progesterone anymore. We use bioidentical progesterone. So there's also estrone, which is a form of estrogen, and estradiol, which is another form of estrogen. So usually before menopause, we're more in the estradiol range, but now we switch to making more estrone, which is more inflammatory, and it's linked to inflammation, even breast cancer metastasis, when we also have high amount of fat and inflammation are high. Now, that being said, this is different than hormone replacements with estradiol. I'm talking about the hormonal shift that occurs during menopause. And then we also need to talk about the overlooked hormone for women, which is testosterone. Now, this is essential for energy and motivation with dopamine signaling. It's important for our lean muscle maintenance, our cognitive sharpness, libido, and sexual response as well. Ovarian testosterone declines even starting in the late 30s. And symptoms would be fatigue despite sleep, flat motivation or drive, reduced muscle mass, low libido or orgasm response, and cognitive dullness. In menopause, ovarian testosterone drops 50 to 60%. So when you lose both estrogen and testosterone, it leads to sarcopenia and visceral fat gain. Sarcopenia is like decrease of muscle mass and muscle being overcome by fat. It can lead to cognitive slowing, blunted sexual response, and just lower vitality. But when we replace testosterone to physiologic range, that can help increase lean mass, increase bone density, increase cognitive focus and mood, increase libido, and decrease hot flash frequency. As far as lifestyle in foundations, we need to look at, again, you're going to hear this over and over, nutrition is going to be important, eating a Mediterranean anti-inflammatory diet. Resistance training is very important, getting proper sleep, and regulate your sleep. Your sleep dramatically improves the experience in this transition. And as we talked about in the other video, watch the alcohol intake because that does help. That does cause sleep issues, stress issues as well. So when to test your hormones. For cycling women, you should check your estradiol and FSH on day 2 to 3. Progesterone is more in the 19 to 21 day range of your cycle. So treatments, bioidentical hormones are definitely an option to look into, something to talk with your provider. You can become in creams and patches and pellets. Never take estradiol orally, a lot more potential side effects. Then you can look at nutrition. There's peptides that can help, and exercise, of course. But what about the birth control pill? This is very commonly given, but birth control pills, also called OCPs, and IUDs, they suppress hormones. So these synthetic hormones don't restore balance, they override our hormones. So they shut down the natural rhythm of our hormones, turn off ovulation, and reduce production of estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone. The birth control pills, they mask, they don't fix the transition. So it's just symptom relief, but there are better ways to help make that conversion. Also, birth control pills can lower B vitamins like B6, B12, folate, zinc, and they also elevate sex hormone binding globulin, which further suppresses testosterone and blunts libido. So when to seek help? When should you talk to your provider or someone that is a menopause specialist? You don't want to wait until the symptoms are unbearable. You want to talk to your provider when you start to notice those changes. Because if your symptoms affect your daily life, you have brain fog, anxiety, night sweats, irregular periods, you should talk to your doctor and see what other options are out there for you. Thank you for your time. I hope you learned a lot in this talk. Drop any questions down below, and I hope everyone has a great day.